Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy, JB.
And this is your boy, AJ.
And us together, we are the Chop Suey Crew podcast. So we've kind of been on a hiatus for the past what is it? It's been about a month, right?
Yeah, man. We took off like we just died or something, man. I don't know.
Well, we didn't die. We're back. AJ just had school, trying to finish it up pretty good, and
right.
I had life events happen, I guess you can say, but
yeah. Also, hold on. You didn't catch the Rona, did you?
Not that I know of.
Oh, okay, cool.
But also want to let the audience know, if you're kind of wondering why this is episode 5 and where's episode 4, man, the YouTube censorship got us.
They got us, man.
Strike one.
Boom.
They said we were cyberbullying and threatening.
Harassing. I don't know what harassment on the last episode we did, but yeah, I'm going to have to listen to that podcast again and see what's what.
I think Hillary Clinton listened in. She's one of our subscribers, I think.
That is true.
Yeah,
there was a dislike on it. I wonder who it was.
It's probably her. So today's episode is titled Minorities Unite.
Woo woo!
And we have a VIP in the house.
VIP.
By the name of Cece.
Cece! Yeah.
How you doing today, man?
I'm good. I'm like throwing up my hands like, what's up? But no one can see me, right? It's a podcast.
Hey. She good people, guys.
Yeah, so Cece, let the audience know a little bit about yourself.
I'm originally from Georgia, small town in Georgia. Most of my family's still there, called Claxton. But I mostly grew up in Kansas City, though, in North Kansas City. Went to school. I'm also a part of the DOD, like these guys right here. So
that's right.
There's some commonalities there. But
hey.
Other than that, I just moved out, this way in March. So I'm fairly new out here. It's cold as hell outside, and I'm not with it at all.
Yo.
But,
let's talk about that for a little bit.
Let's talk
it's
about
so
it.
Freaking cold, man. What is it right now? 19 degrees?
Literally, and it was like 80 yesterday. So my body's in complete shock right now.
So the $1 million question for you is, what's your favorite barbecue in Kansas City?
Gates Barbecue.
Oh, no. Jack
What?
Stack all the way.
Oh my God, Gates.
Oklahoma Joe's.
Whoa.
Whoa. Hold on, man. The best barbecue is in Shreveport, Bossier, named Bodacious Barbecue.
Just the name of it alone, like Bodacious.
Dude, I'm telling you.
It sounds like there's some thickums up in there. Bodacious.
Hey, that's for real.
So on another note, we got a special beverage for our guest. So went out, spent some guap.
Not the wop, all right?
And
Not the what? Two totally different things.
we bought a bottle of some Cristal.
They've been hyping up this bottle of Cristal, so I hope it's everything that my tongue has imagined that it's gonna be.
All right, so we're about to open it. Man, I ain't got no fucking fingernails for this
Let me
shit.
see. Let me
Yeah.
help you out, right?
Yeah.
They did not practice, clearly.
So,
You don't got a
man,
bottle
this is too
opener?
fancy, man.
No, so there's
Oh, right here.
there's a tab. Yeah, a tab.
Yeah. Let me-
Man, we sound like a bunch of.
Oh, man.
amateurs in here, man.
220 bottle of wine.
Yeah, $220.
Man, this is too
Oh, here,
fancy,
let me
man.
see, let me
All right,
see.
you got, I got
my
it, man.
goodness.
I got you started, man.
Yeah.
I feel like in their head this went way smoother than it's going right now.
It's like that first time I opened a wine, and I was just jacking it up. I was just stabbing the cork, and it was all over the place, man. It was bad.
All right, it's coming. Here we go. All right, everybody ready?
Oh, wait.
Hey. Hold on.
Wait, no, I'm not ready. I'm a millennial.
There it is. That scared the shit out of me.
Did you guys hear that?
All right, so let's get some bubbly in the house. Ooh. There you go.
All right, my guy. Thank you.
It smells like cat piss. Yeah, it smells like cat piss, but hopefully it tastes not like cat piss. Here you go.
JB, this better be better than the Dom Perignon.
Bro, all day, man.
I know I'm like,
I
I gotta cheers everyone. I don't
yeah,
know,
cheers.
Let's make this like official. All right.
Yeah. Oh, it tastes like shit.
It's a,
Man, what the heck, bro? Man.
it does
It's
not
supposed to blow your
taste like
mind.
$220.
This is not $200, bro.
Oh man, we tried.
You have to return that shit, man. Can you get $50 out of that?
Can
I
we,
mean, this glass is about $50.
it's a cool bottle, you know. So
Yes,
maybe
yes.
that's what you paid for.
Yeah, I could have made that for you,
Oh
man.
wow.
It almost tastes like vinegar, man.
For real, man. What the?
All
know
you
what?
need is a little bit of orange juice and some Benedict's, egg Benedicts, and
Oh, yeah, mimosa.
make a little mimosa.
Ooh,
This will be
hey.
pretty smooth.
Cece
right,
got it,
that's
man.
right.
I think she knows. She knows how to have a good
Sunday
time.
fun day. Yeah, exactly.
Where'd that cork go?
It's back
It's right
there.
by your big toe.
Yeah. It's here in the room. It's not going
I
nowhere.
got it.
You got the collection.
That's right. All right, Cece, what would you like to talk about today on the podcast?
So, I don't want to say it's died down because it definitely hasn't. I think the media has kind of gone off it a little bit, and I'm sure elections have a little bit to do with that. But the Black Lives Matter movement,
BLM.
and honestly, like I don't necessarily want to talk about the Black Lives Matters movement, but like that's what it is, though, right? But why is this still a thing? You know what I mean? Like, when did slavery get abolished? Like 1865, right? And
Yes.
it's 2020. So the fact that this is even still a conversation, where it probably shouldn't blow my mind anymore, it really does blow my mind that that this is still a conversation. So
Yes.
yeah, let's talk about that. Let's do that.
Oh, so with you being in the DOD, in your career so far, have you faced any type of, so to say, social injustice during your time?
Or discrimination in general, kind of, thing.
Well, DOD related. I'll give both sides of it. So, I can say like I grew up in like a mostly white like community. Like I was one of a handful of black kids in my high school, and that type of thing. So like all growing up, there was like these little like comments and things people would make, and I never really knew. You know what I mean? Like I
Okay.
never really like took heed to like this is not okay that you said
Yeah.
that, like
Right.
you know, like
It's kinda like a dig
yeah,
at you,
like even my little brother, like they call him like Hershey, you know what I mean, and he like let it happen for a while, and then my dad heard like that was happening. He's like, why are you letting them call you that? Like that's not okay. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it was like little things like that growing up, and then as I got older and like got to be like around different cultures and things like that, just seeing like you do see how people get treated, and it does come to light a lot more. The first experience I like really had being in the uniform was at my first job, and I was not in my uniform though. We were out. It was someone's going away. Like we were going to bars. We had a
Having a
party.
party,
but-
yeah.
Yes, like
We are.
when I tell you, we were lit. Like we had a
lit.
party bus. It was so awesome. Like we had so much fun. We went to this one bar and we walked inside of it, and this guy, like we're like, there's a bunch of people in there, so we're like trying to get skinny and get through the crowd or whatever.
Yeah.
And this guy sitting at a table, he like stands up in front of me and he goes, we don't like your kind here. Mind you, I'm a little belligerently drunk at this point, right? Like I'm a little bit out of there. And it really like, I was really confused at first. Like I really did not know, like it took a second for it to click. And I was like, I'm sorry, what did you just say?
Yeah, like what you
Like literally, as I was like, I'm sorry,
Pause for a
like
minute.
pause, right?
Yeah.
Pause. Let's talk about it. What'd you just say? And he goes, we don't like your kind here. Sorry.
Wow, excuse me.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
right? So then like my friends, like they heard it, they overheard it and everything. So like they just grabbed me and like we just like jetted out of there, you know what I mean? Before there was a scene or anything like that. But that was the first time in my life where someone like directly said something that was like,
Just straight up at you. Kinda like,
yeah, because I'm like, what is my kind? Like
Yeah,
you don't
what do you
like
mean by that?
females, like you don't like people who serve our country,
Yeah,
like you don't
yeah.
like
My
people
skin
that are
color,
wearing this
yeah.
red
Yeah.
shirt. Like what is my kind? Like let's talk about like what does that mean? You know, people
Man.
that wear a size 9 shoe. Like,
For real, it could be anything.
it could be. Let's be specific on what we're talking about right now.
Exactly.
You know? So there's that. Within like wearing the uniform, Nothing's ever been direct, but people give off vibes, and like there's those instances and things like that. More so than anything, I think it's the like thinking that one black person can like speak on behalf of like all minorities. You know what I mean? So like you get those questions, and like people try to get like those perspectives, quote unquote, out of you,
Right.
which is really awkward. Like I can give you like my opinion, but like, I can't speak for it, you know. And then the other thing is like with this movement going on, it's been, I can say like it's kind of hard being a member that I guess that serves while all this is going on, because where we want to be more, I guess, radical is the word I'll use, where I'd like to be more radical, more vocal, participate in more things, because of what I do and how I provide for myself and my family. Like I can't do those things, so I have to be a lot more mindful than a lot of my peers have to be, you know what I mean? So they can say things on social media, they can, not that we like can't go to rallies and marches and things like that, but I am very cautious about it because of, you know, the temperament of everyone is extremely high right now.
Yeah.
And things go from calm to chaos
Straight
really
up,
quickly,
like,
right?
Yeah.
The looting, the just the violence in general, it just happens so quickly. And so where I technically could do those things, I just choose not to protect myself and my career. But it makes me feel like shitty about myself that I do that. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I should still be out on the front lines and things like that. So it's like I'm choosing, picking and choosing. And so, I feel like I'm not fighting the good fight all the time, you know. So I guess that'd be the hard part about
That's true.
being a service member.
Well, I think a lot of it, like especially in the DoD now, they try to. There's a lot about diversity and
inclusion and kind of just those things.
Do you think DoD is going in the right direction?
I think a lot of it sounds good. I think people say the right things. I think people type the right things in their emails. You know what I mean?
That is
but
true.
Like,
you gotta, show the
outlook
face.
Yeah. But like, one of the biggest things, right, is so lots of leadership has put out these messages like we're here for you, diversity, inclusion, we're a family, all of these things, and in an email that 99% of people are just going to delete anyways, you know what I mean? Like, what are you really doing? Like, what message are you really getting out? You're checking a box, you know what I mean? So more so, like, are you really putting together, like, there was a big push on like safe places to have these conversations, right? Like we want people to feel safe and be able to have these conversations. Saying that's great, but like, are you providing these venues for these conversations to happen? Are you having a town halls, or are you having just whatever forum where folks can just come and talk about these things and really say what they need to say to feel heard, right?
Yep.
Because again, like a lot of people feel unheard, feel unfelt, like they're just going day by day. Like this uniform, I'm wearing this uniform, but for what?
Right.
And a lot of people will say, like, for a country that doesn't care anything about me outside of this uniform.
Right.
So that's a question I get a lot, too, is about being a service member, you know, in the uniform. Like, do you feel like there's a difference? And, yeah, like, I feel like when I have my uniform on, I get a lot more respect when I'm out in the community, in the downtown, you know, with our civilian peers, I guess. People will approach you differently. Like there is a difference versus if I'm in my street clothes or you know, just out. There's definitely a different level of respect off of the uniform.
So I remember during the time that they were talking about diversity and inclusion, and when you first came here, you actually had a meeting that you had held multiple times. Did you have a pretty good? Did a lot of people come to the actual meeting?
So I won't say a lot of people came, but a good number came. I think it was a good turnout. And again, the reason I did that was because I was seeing that a lot of leadership was like saying like, we need these safe places, but nothing was being done. So it's like, let's literally create a space. Like, let's go sit down, bought everyone dinner. Like, there's no topic really. You know what I mean? Like, just come. There's a lot going on in our society right now. Like, just say whatever's on your mind and your heart, and it's protected. You know, like, we're here just having an open conversation. Biggest thing was, like, I don't ever think everyone has to agree on everything. It's just a matter of, like, listening and understanding. Like, I hear what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree, but I respect. There's still a level of respect that's there. You know what I mean?
You gotta have that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
And that's the biggest, and I think that's the biggest like miscommunication is that people think like you have to agree on everything, or if I disagree with you, like it's instant conflict.
Yeah,
like it doesn't
wow.
have to be that. Like, like we just don't agree. It's that simple. Like we have different perspectives on it. That's
I
fine.
remember, what was it? Our command team. They had those meetings, you know, and it was kind of awkward because, you know, you had your top enlisted for the squadron, and just it was pretty much a bunch of Caucasian individuals, and he was asking like, how do you feel about this? And everybody just sitting there like crickets because it doesn't affect them.
Yeah, it can't relate. You know?
There's no way to relate to. So I do believe I agree with you when you're like, they're just trying to check the box. Like, you know, it's kind of sad. I mean, I grew up in the South as well. And you see that stuff all the time. Like Northern Florida, they call it the Redneck Riviera. There's a reason for it. So, I mean, it's an awesome, beautiful place, but racism is really bad. I mean, like, take, for example, AJ and I are Asian, but I had to go to a private school. I was the only Asian kid. I used to get called
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, like we'd probably get banned from YouTube again if I said some of these terms, but I'm not gonna go there. I think it's kind of wild that, like you said, in 2020, that this is still an issue. Like, you know, there was a point in time where women were fighting for their rights, and it hasn't been like that. But like you said, slavery was abolished in 1865, which was what, 145 years ago.
Yeah.
Why are we still in this position now? So, do you think there will be a better future?
I think that I had a conversation with a friend about this, and I honestly, I don't think it's like tomorrow by any means, but I honestly do. And the reason that I think that there is because, like, historically, like, black people have been sick of it. You know what I mean? Like, that's where all these movements come up, and, you know, there's ebb and flows of how, I guess, intense it is. Yeah. But it just, something happens, like, black people get sick of it. I think we're in a time now where, like, there's so much support around, like, the bullshit that's happening, right? Like, these marches and just being out, you know, being up north and seeing the marches and the population of the march, like, it's not a lot of black people, you know what I mean? Of course, like, we're out there,
right.
But like, you see all races and majority, like, white folks out there, and, like, sick of it. Everyone's sick of it. Like, everyone sees it at this point, you know? Yeah. And so because of that, because I think there's, like, a real understanding, like, and a real, I say a more of a want to understand, right? So the forum that we were talking about that I held, there was a lady there, and she came. She was a white lady. She came and she literally said, like, I'm here because I realize I have no idea what's going on outside of my own little bubble. Wow. And like, yeah. I know things are probably not good, but, like, my life is good. And so I don't see, like, why is all this happening? I don't understand why all this is happening. So I'm here to literally just listen and understand and hear people's stories and just learn. And so, like, things like that, like, that's what makes a better future, right? So if you're like, you're not going to experience the same things that I experience. I'm not going to experience the same things you experience, right? Exactly. But if we take the time to, like, just sit, have conversations and understand and to learn and to, at the end of the day, like, stand up and love each other and support each other, that's what gets us to a better future, right? So I think there's just enough people that are just sick of the systematic bullshit that there's more fight. There's more behind the fight.
Yeah. But I think a lot of it, like, one of the big issues that comes about is, like, statistics. I mean, you can't ever go against math. Has always shown that,
sometimes.
Like, yeah, sometimes. You know, African Americans are more prone to violence from the police. You know, they're more prone to poverty and things of that such. And it's, you know, on paper it's written there in percentages. Why do you think? I mean, what's your opinion about the government not really taking action or anything?
Well, because the government has created this, right? Like,
Yeah.
so when you say like black, so one of the statements that we made is like, oh, there's so much black on black crime, right? Well, there's more white on white crime. There's more like Asian on Asian crime because like that's your community. That's who you're around, right? Like so, that those obviously the statistics is like how you look at them, right? You can skew statistics to read anything that you want them to read, say anything that you want them to say, right? So things as simple as like redlining. So I don't know if everyone's familiar with redlining, but like literally historically, like blacks have been put into neighborhoods, like forced, into neighborhoods, right? So this is your community. One, they're heavily policed, and that's how war on drugs and all, all those things came up and things like that. And like you are made to look a certain, like the media and the government like has put this certain image on you, and so like that's why, you know what I mean? Like if we hadn't been forced into these neighborhoods and like everything had just been everything had not been segregated and things like that, like where would we be? How would things be different? But even now, like you see like lower income communities and versus the suburbs. Who lives in the lower ends and who lives in the suburbs? Correct. Why is that, right?
Exactly.
It goes down to jobs, like who's getting the jobs and who's having to fight tooth and nail to barely feed their family, and you know what I mean. And so sure, like the statistics read that, but like historically, what has happened that has made it like this? Like why are people in these situations that they're in day to day?
So
go ahead.
So culturally, you think that's the issue with like that's how it is, and for a long time we haven't really done anything about it. It's just it's okay, and it hasn't been. And that's another thing too with like social media now. It's just out there. You can capture a lot of those things on your camera, so it's more pronounced. So I think maybe that's a good thing.
I think it's a huge thing that's like kind of helps shed light on a lot of situations too.
But I could be devil's advocate in this situation.
Let's do it.
And you will.
Yes, I will. So I don't have social media. One of the issues that I have with social media is, say a cop shoots a black individual, right?
Right.
A person can take a clip of that video and just show that one shot, and people will go crazy with it. But maybe something else happened. Yeah, it's out of context. Maybe they didn't show the whole video to that. I'm not saying that this happens all the time, but I think with social media and the way the country is now, it's extremely polarized. Extremely. I don't think it's ever been like this. Like, I mean, I grew up in the 80s, early 90s. Like,
well, I think we're all.
It was a different world. Yeah.
You look good for your age, man.
I got a few white hairs.
But she's the youngest.
I think social media has polarized the country to the extreme. I mean, take a look at, for example, with the election, right? Trump, Biden. Yeah. You have these diehard Trump people, and you will never budge them. Never budge them. It was never like that before, people were very open to ideas. They were very open to theories, things of that sort. But now it's just, Trump is this because he's a strong white dude. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I think if you even talk about the presidency, what's kind of crazy to me is that we actually had a president that was black. And the country is still in the state that it is now, which is wild to me. Like, and for me, I'm not really a Republican or a Democrat. I'm very open to ideas, but to me, Obama was a good president. He was a great president. I mean, there's some things like Obamacare I don't agree with, things of that such, but people will judge him just by the base of his color. And it's just
will never like him. Like, never gave him a chance because of his color, right?
And it's just, the problem with social media is like, before we even got on air, we was talking about conspiracy theories. You could throw an idea out there, and if you get enough people to run with it, it becomes reality. So I think there's hope for the country to change, but I don't actually kind of see it changing any time in our lifetime.
I don't think it's gonna be in our. It's sad, right? Like
Yeah.
I think hopefully, you know, like I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic that there will be positive strides, right?
Yeah.
Will it ever be to where like this is not a conversation after this long? It being a conversation, like it's hard to say like that
Yeah.
that is even something realistic to imagine happening, but
Right.
I don't know. Like I guess only time will tell and how that goes.
That is
But
true.
yeah, it's just it's hard. But like you were just talking about like politics, like Democrats and Republicans. Like this was hilarious to me actually. I had on a Black Lives Matter mask, and I was told it was inappropriate for the venue, you know, that we were in and everything like that.
I remember this.
Yeah, it was without going into too much detail, I was very not happy. But anyways, I ended up having a conversation with the individual like later. It was like the next day or two. They wanted to sit down and talk about it, and they were like, "Oh, you're making a political statement," which no matter how anyone explains it to me, I will never understand how like Black Lives Matter movement is considered a political statement. You know, I just because of and it's because people just want to believe what they want to believe, and like you said, like once someone believes something and they don't want to be swayed from it, like they're not gonna be swayed from it. But we talk about that too. But Black Lives Matter to me is in no way, shape, or form it's not tied to any political party. You know,
It's like your life. Like
it's
I live
Exactly.
this.
It's a movement,
It
you know?
is literally,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So like brought that up. This individual like literally told me, you know, that because of my, you know, position and it was inappropriate because I could make people feel like swayed one way or the other or feel like they
Right.
make them uncomfortable, this, that, and the third. And basically told me like because I was wearing it, like they thought like I could be tied to the Democratic Party. And I was like, yeah, like literally it's like we got like somehow it switched to politics and they were like, yeah, like, you know, and I was like, I asked the question, I was like, so what party like would you think I was voting for because I wore this mask? And
Right.
just straight up they were like, Democrat.
Oh,
And I was like, so you're saying like no Republicans support the Black Lives Matter movement? That's what you're telling me.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, no, like I just like if you were wearing a MAGA shirt, then I would think you're voting Republican. Well, yeah, like that's directly tied to something political. You know what I mean?
But I mean, like, it's kind of a double-edged sword when they say
Yeah.
that because most individuals in the DOD, which way do they lean?
Yeah.
Republican.
Right.
So it's like, well, if you're gonna put a political stamp on Black Lives Matter, then you're just telling me that you're a Republican.
And I felt exactly that way.
Yeah.
Like you just
Yeah.
told me, and then like to me, it's funny because like Democrat, Republican, because I wore a Black Lives Matter mask, like. You're making the assumption that I vote at all. You making the assumption that I'm tied to any political party. You know what I mean? Like to me, like there's plenty people I know that of course that support the Black Lives Matter movement and don't give a damn about politics. Don't give a damn.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like don't feel hopeless
Yeah.
because of politics. You know what I mean? So and I think that's why it's hard for me to wrap my head around how the Black Lives movement is tied to a political party
That is
when
true,
we're
yeah.
literally talking about like I matter. That's
Oh, yeah.
what we're talking about. Like
I think that's from like history, you know, way back in the day, you know, like minorities were predominantly voting for Democrats. That's really what it was, you know, and you had the white collar individuals because they always got the tax breaks from the Republicans, and usually the higher ups who were white, they would vote Republican. I think it kind of stems from that, but the way the world is, I mean, say 20 years ago, there's more opportunities for minorities now than there was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think because of that, I don't believe that you can put a political stamp on Black Lives Matter because you could have an Asian or an African American out there making 150 grand and be like, well, I'm a Republican because I don't want to pay all this tax, you know, like I want this tax break. So, but it's kind of crazy that you kind of had to go through that because, you know, I kind of see it as, because I remember seeing you wearing that. And I have noticed now that you have turned it inside out.
yeah, I was told to
But
pour me up.
Kind of the way I kind of look at it is by you being out there wearing that mask, especially in the position that you are and all the subordinates that are underneath you, I believe that it shows your subordinates that you stand for something and that they can stand for something. You know, just like you said when you did the town hall to where you know, just having a voice, like seeing where the people are. You're being that light in the dark, telling those individuals like, hey, you need to stand up for what you believe in, type deal. So it's kind of a shame. I mean, AJ and I have spent, I mean, we are a combined 30 years in the DoD now.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's a lot of time.
it's drastically changed since we came in. I mean, I came in 2005,
lot.
and it's drastically changed. But I think the DoD has to conform and be flexible with everything, just because we are, you know, when other countries look at us and the uniform, you know, we represent them, and I think that we kind of have to be at the forefront of change and things of that sort. I mean, if you kind of look at the new chief of staff, you know, General Brown, and he came out with that video. I don't know if you watched that video where he sat down and was like, you know, because I was black, people thought I couldn't fly a jet.
Yeah.
Because I was black, you know. And it's kind of crazy to me. Like, I've actually met General Brown. He's a genius. Like, he's phenomenal and stuff like that. And
Yeah, that's my uncle.
hey, hook it up.
But
Google it.
I think it's crazy that somebody would look at a general, an individual in the higher echelons of politics in America, and think that because of his skin color, he is not able to do a job. Like, I think that's a little wild. And
then to go back to what we were saying earlier, like, even in his uniform, people think that, right? So, like, imagine him in his street clothes. Imagine him regular. Right. Like, I do feel sometimes like my uniform is like what protects me in society. It is like literally like a little cloak. You know what I mean? Which is really sad, but that's the reality.
It'll take some time, I think. Like, as you guys mentioned, I think with any changes, a big change like that, it's just one of those things where culturally, you know, I think some people are not ready, but over time, the more people you get in there, like you're, you know, having that conversation with people of different colors, you know, them understanding that side, they start to realize, wow, this is a thing. You know, we gotta, you know, do something about it. You know, and having those conversations leads to things like, you know, having to realize, hey, we gotta step up a little bit and you know, kind of, you know, do something about this injustice. So I think it's a good thing that what you're doing, and you know, we gotta spread the word sometimes and kind of get that going.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to be devil's advocate again on this.
You're good at this.
Yeah. So, you know, most of my family is located in New York City or, you know, Florida, but my wife's family, the majority of them are in Mississippi. And I mean, if you look at Alabama, Mississippi, parts of Georgia, Louisiana, it's kind of like they're still in the times. I remember there was a conversation at one time, you know, talking to my wife's grandfather, and he used the N-word with the hard R, and he didn't think anything twice about it. And to me, like, how do you change that? Because the way I kind of look at it too, and I've always questioned this, and I've never really asked anybody, was African Americans call each other the N-word sometimes.
Yes.
Do you think that exasperates the issue? Do you think that causes the issue to keep going on? Because for me personally, like, you know, with me and AJ being Asian, I wouldn't call him a derogatory slur for an Asian. And I've always kind of wondered that, like, do you think that exasperates the issue? Do you think that...
Do I personally think that it does? No, because, okay, like, let's say that, like, all it takes to make all this go away and make the world kumbaya is for black people to stop saying the N-word.
Yes. That
fixes everything. Do you think, like, realistically, if black people never said the N-word again, is that going to change people's minds about how they feel? It doesn't. And so I think it's an excuse. Like, it's that... First of all, the way that it's used when black people use it towards each other is not it's not the right answer. I get it. I can agree. Like, it's not the right answer, but it's not used to hurt, or it's not used to bring someone down or make someone feel lesser than. You know what I mean? There's a culture behind it. There's a reason, and that we use it, right? So. Do I think it's the best thing? No. But I don't think that it's stopping anything from bettering the world. You know what I mean? Like I don't think it's the issue.
But I mean, I think it's because I've heard people like, well, they use that word, why can't we? And I've had black friends that are like, you can call me. I'm like, I feel just really weird saying that. I do understand the culture about it. It's like, when you call somebody that's like, that's your homie, like that's your really good friend, like they trust you and things of that such. But I've never really understood like why it's it's kind of used. So thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, I mean it's a colloquial, right? It's just a colloquial. That's all it is a colloquial.
Term of endearment, sometimes.
Yeah, and not always, like, and not always, but it's again, it comes with the history of it, right? Like, why is it? Think about like why would I not want a white person saying that to me? Because how was it like why was it used in the past? Like it was not used as an endearing term at all, right? So no, like I'm triggered. I'm instantly triggered, right? So yeah. So I mean, there's context behind everything, and so I think one of the issues is that more so than like what words we use or aren't using is that people are afraid of conversation. Mm-hmm. It's as simple as like having conversations and like understanding each other, right? And I think that is the biggest fail is that people think that like, oh, I've acknowledged like I'm not racist or I have black friends or there's my second cousin's black, like those are not the conversations. Like there's deeper things and there's understanding something as simple as like white privilege. Like there's some people, if you tell them that they have white privilege, they are going to fucking lose it. Like they are triggered, right? All the Karens in the world do not understand like how someone can dare say that they have white privilege. If you have the conversation, white privilege is not necessarily a bad thing. It is just a thing that exists. And so for you to get so defensive by something that clearly this glass of Cristal right here exists, and like you cannot get mad about like it exists. Is it a bad thing? It's a bad thing depending on how you use it, right? Like I think white privilege, it's out there. White privilege is a thing, so it's like okay, so let's deal with it. Like, how are you going to use your white privilege? Are you going to use it for good or are you going to use it for evil? It's that simple, you know what I mean? Are you going to use it to support and bring awareness and fight the good fight in the injustices in the world, and not just for like black folks, right? Like in general, like are you going to use your white privilege for the better of the world, or are you going or not? Are you going to ignore it? Being ignorant is the worst thing you can do in any situation. Like being ignorant to the facts, like you're not helping yourself, you're not helping anybody by being ignorant, by acting like race is not a thing, by acting like white privilege doesn't exist. Like those things, like white privilege, I can't even say it enough, is not necessarily a bad thing. It is just something that exists, and acknowledge it, use it for the good, and move on.
Which is kind of crazy that you say that, because we've been talking about how you face social injustice, and you're sitting here saying that white privilege is not a bad thing.
And it's like people again hear what they want to hear, see what they want to see, right? Like, so I can sit here and say this. There's tons of people black folks, like people that support the Black Lives Matter movement, all type of people that will like feel this way and will say these things, but people don't hear it. Like I don't know, like they don't hear it. They think that everyone in the Black Lives Movement is radical against the government, against this, that, and the third. Like, people just want to be treated right. Simply put, Black Lives Matter movement is not about anything except for treat me how you treat the guy sitting next to you, the guy sitting to your right and to your left. Like, see me and treat me like a human being. That's all it's about.
So in reality, it should be ALM. All lives matter.
And so here's the other thing. Let's talk about it. So there's the Black Lives Matter versus the All Lives Matter movement, right? I've like put stuff on my Facebook about Black Lives Matter movement, and the ALM folks don't like it at all. Like they, oh my God! Like I will pull up my Facebook right now and read the paragraphs that I get, and for me, and like this is not even like a shade. This is me. Like I genuinely enjoy having the conversation, and I
That's
will.
good.
I will go back, like, not go back and forth with folks on Facebook because I don't argue with folks, but like I genuinely want to know people's perspectives, right? So if I'm posting like Black Lives Matters, right, and someone who is an All Lives Matter person, quote unquote, just goes on a rant on my page, like please like explain that to me. Like I really want to know, like, why does this offend you? Why does me saying Black Lives Matters offend you? Well, because we should all this, that, and the third. Great. So do you agree that Black Lives, like, to me, that's what it is. Like, in All Lives Matters, do you or do you not agree that Black Lives Matter? And I think that's where, like,
You got them right there.
it really confuses me because I don't understand how saying Black Lives Matter is any slay at All Lives Matter. Like
Right.
it's a part of that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So like does it make you feel better for me to say All Lives Matter? Because then like we're not talking about it, right? Like we're just doing what makes you comfortable. Like we're keeping taking black out of it is really like black is what bothers you. Like to be real, the word black is what bothered you in that sentence. Like so to say like Blue Lives Matters, what is Blue Lives?
Right. That could be anything.
The cops.
The cops.
Well,
The cops.
So who are cops? Cops are of all races. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and what does that have to do with the fact that like this race is treated unjustly day in and day out? And all anyone is asking is for it to stop. That is all Black Lives Matter is. So I don't know. I have a really hard time understanding it. Like, no, and I will listen to anyone who wants to try to explain it to me and give me their perspective. I just haven't been able to get it. Like, no one's been able to explain it to me to where saying Black Lives Matters makes anybody else's life more invaluable, because that's not what it's about at all. It's not what it's about at all.
Well, I think like you kind of explained it just now to the audience is like, because I know a ton of people out there are like, well, Black Lives Matter, like it's only about African Americans in the country, you know? But you coming out there saying that it's about everybody. So it's kind of crazy to me that all lives matter is like, fuck your BLM.
Literally, man, and I wish I had like saved the screenshot so I could easily just read some stuff for y'all.
I think we should do that for like
Yeah,
last part. Just kind of help us understand that, because I think you brought up a good point about is being treated with respect, because that's the biggest part. Because you know, you think about it, right? You know, when you mentioned it, JB, with like, you know, you see a certain color, you're like, oh, I'm gonna profile them or whatever, you know, whatever. But why, you know, just because of the skin color? Like, you think I'm this? Because I remember I was in Baltimore and
Be more. The Wire.
we were passing by. That's it. We're just going to liquor store. My friend, I have a hoodie on, and my friend happened to be a black person. We're just walking, and guess what? Cops just stopped us in our tracks. Said, "Hey, where you guys going?" And we just like, well, we're just going to the liquor store. And then all of a sudden, there was like 3 or 4 cop cars pulled up, and like they needed backup. Like we were doing some drug deals.
Yeah,
So I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And you know, we looked at each other like, look, I'm Asian and he's black. What's going on here? Like, you know, like, are we doing something illegal or? And we're in the DOD, man. Like, come on now.
Yeah, not
like,
knowing you better ship out to the Middle East. You better ship out to the war.
Chill with that stuff, but I get it.
Send the boys.
So it's crazy.
And I literally like in my car, I keep one of my hats like in the dashboard because like that just makes me feel a little bit better. Like if I get pulled over,
it's actually kind of crazy you do that because I do the same thing.
Yeah,
like I mean, I look Hispanic, but I am half Asian. But I mean the stuff that I kind of grew up with, like through high school and stuff, I kind of still have that kind of notion. I mean, when I first joined the DOD, they used to call me Kim Jong Il. And it's like, fuck, man. It's like, that ain't my fucking name. But, you know, it's kind of crazy to me that, like, and I do the same thing. It's just a habit. Like, I literally take my hat off and I throw it a certain way, and it lands exactly the same way every time. But I leave that hat in there, so it's like, don't fuck with me type deal, you know? Like, it's just sad that in 2020, how everybody's connected, how harmonious people tend to be, you know, and we have all this information to learn about certain things, and people are just so they're influenced by other things, and it's like, take the president for example. I think he exasperates the issue greatly. Like there was, you know, some type of protest, riots and stuff when Obama was in office, but when Trump came in, this is unprecedented. We've never ever seen anything like this. Like, and I believe that he exasperates the issue greatly. Like, you know, what was it? What's the group? The Good Boys or something? You know, he wasn't downplaying them that they're a radical group or anything. And then finally after the debate, he was like, oh yeah, they are, you know, type stuff.
Right.
And people, because we're so polarized in the country, like the Trump supporters, they're going to believe anything he says and they're going to grasp onto it and they're just going to go out there and be like, well, fuck you. Like, so I don't know. I always thought, like, being at this age, life would be figured out, you know, the society would be figured out, I guess you can say, but it's taking a step back in my eyes.
It's
like,
scary, and it's like, again, like I just can't even say enough how for people just wanting to be treated right, like that this is like that's a problem. That's a problem in our society, is that people just want to be treated right. You know, so I don't know where we're gonna go. I don't know how it's gonna end.
I think people should be thanking African Americans. I mean, they built our economy back in the day. I mean, slavery was a bad thing, but it made us a powerhouse off their backs, I guess you can say. You know, in reality, like, I mean, growing up in the South, like you did in Georgia, it's, you know, it's very common to see a Confederate flag and what people use that for. I mean, how do you feel about cities taking down statues and the Confederate flag and things like that?
I think that I think the intent behind it, like, is good, right? Like, it's moving in because, again, like, what do these statues represent? And like, people can say, oh, it's my heritage. Like, that's not your heritage. You know what I mean? Like, that being a Confederate is not, and for what it was in the day, at least, whatever you want to call it now, fine. But like, when those statues were built and what they represented when they were built, like, that is not positive. It's not positive for anybody. So for you to say, like, that's your heritage, like, you have a huge misunderstanding of what heritage is. You know what I mean? Like,
so for me, I'm a lover of history, and I actually don't believe in taking that stuff down. Like, I mean, that's where our country, it's a reminder of what our country used to be and where we've come from. So looking at that, you can be like, well, we don't ever want to go back that way. I mean, you know, slavery is kind of abolished in most of the world as it is now. But I believe, me personally, I believe taking those statues down that's history. That's like a disservice.
And that's a great way to look at it, but I just don't think that the majority of people who want those statues up look at it that way. You know?
True.
So like where you're looking at it as history, like they worship that because of what it represented. And those were the times, and that's how they believe that it should still be. You know what I mean? So, and I think that's where the issue comes in, is like, sure, we want to recognize history, like that's what it is, cool, but that's not, I don't think for the masses that's what it is, and that's where the issue comes about. And so so that's how I feel about it, is it's idolized, it's an evil that's idolized, honestly. Like, that's how I feel about it. They're evils that are idolized for the wrong reasons.
Well, it was like, you know, growing up, like, people have Confederate flags. Like, there was parts of the city we wouldn't go into because, you know, we weren't a certain color, and they'd have the Confederate flag and stuff. Like, that's wild to me. Like, you know, growing up, it's like 1995, 96, and, you know, dad's like, don't fucking go over there type deal. Like,
well, and even now, so then, like, to grow up in that, and like to be driving downtown in 2020 and see
Still
a truck
that.
with an American and a Confederate flag, like, that's scary. You know what I mean? Because like, what are you saying? Like, I don't, and maybe it's not a negative, like, but I don't know. You know what I, because the history of what it represents and where it came from is not a good thing. So like, I'm not even gonna try to approach you and have that conversation and find out like what's going on.
There's no conversation there.
Yeah,
motherfucker.
yeah. But you know, so that's people say like, oh, that's history. That's not political. But a Black Lives Matter flag is like. There's just so many contradictory things that
I never thought of it that way.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah,
getting educated.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that was the best episode we've had so far.
That's right.
Maybe because it's been the first time I've drank on this episode. I have a lot of questions, but
he's lit right now. He's drunk. All right?
Yeah, I want to give a big shout out to Cece. Very informative. Stood by what she believed in. I believe in what she believes in. So, on that note, your boy JB's out.
AJ's out.
Sweet. Woo.